السلام عليكم. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونتوب إليه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. At about this time last month, we've introduced the idea of reflecting upon the gift that was given to us by starting a new Islamic Hijri year. It so happens that also today, it's sort of the anniversary that closes this month, the end of the summer, more or less officially. And so children and sons and daughters, and today with lifelong learning, sometimes brothers and sisters as well as some of our parents, go back to school and begin in earnest a whole journey of education and learning. And so though the summer is meant to be designed specifically as a time to slow down a little bit and take it easy and allow ourselves to recover from the daily grind, what the summer has never been prescribed to do at any time, at least to my understanding, is to become a period of sort of a black hole of laziness, like binging on Netflix all day long, or on YouTube all day long, or just staying up all night, sleeping all day. That's not what the summer was supposed to be. So for those obviously who have taken this summer to do something special with it, whether it is to go outdoors or enjoy a trip somewhere or learn about the culture or pick up a new books and learn from them or engage in some constructive activity, fun, absolutely and categorically fun, but still constructive activity that enriches life, congratulations to you. And for those who might have missed this opportunity, maybe this khutbah is for us to reboot and come to this period of time of getting back into the rhythm of the school year and the rhythm of life, and welcome the possibilities that are coming our way. So inshallah, we can get ready for this both mentally, spiritually, and physically. And to do that, I'm going to build on the foundation of what I talked about last month, and my hope is that you remember a little bit my practical advice towards the end of the khutbah that had many things that we could take home, and then we start working on them. So today, I want to unpack specifically one of those ideas and dive into it a little bit deeper. So this idea that I want to talk about, I credit Mohamed, the great poet, for having been my inspiration for putting it poetically in words. When asked the following questions, this is the way he formulated them and answered them. The question was, what is the death of intellect? He replied, if you stop engaging in tafakkur, contemplation or reflection is a possible translation for tafakkur. Remember that he was extremely technical and erudite in the Quran. So when he chooses a Quranic term in anything he writes, it packs a punch. One, he doesn't choose the words randomly, and two, whichever word he uses, it's surgically chosen, and three, he means by it not the depth of the poet, but he means by it what the Quran meant by it. So keep that in mind as I unpack this idea, because it's quite a skill and it's a gift that only Allah gives to the very few. Then he asked, what is the death of love? And he replied, when you stop remembering the beloved. I'm going to call this advice and the theme of the khutbah the contemplation or the deep dive into what is to me in those two questions and answers a double movement, something where you think about digging a tunnel from both ends. You start on one end to bore in the mountain, you start on the other end to bore in the mountain, and obviously the hope is for the two pieces to meet at the right point. But there is efficiency in digging something from both ends, which is a double movement. So what is the double movement in few words, not in the language of poets, but in our simple words for people who are us, students of life and of literature? One is the centrality of Allah in our life. So this tafakkur, which I'll describe in a minute in more details that are technical in nature, it's a form of ibadah, so it's a form of worship where we engage all of our senses in a quest to contemplate the divine in our presence. And that is a mouthful of a lot of things to be done. So that's one end of digging the tunnel. The other end is how do we find home and not lose direction and use love of our compass in order to find where we are supposed to go and arrive there successfully. So without any further ado, let's get into the aspects of it. The ulama of the Quran, obviously, and the ulama of Islam in general, given that their understanding of the vernacular of the Quran is quite deep, they are not poor in putting in front of us a large number of lexicographic definitions of tafakkur as they understand it. So I think I've done this several times, and it's just a reminder today that typically the understanding of the language of the Quran is always defined into these two categories. Lughatan wa istilahan. What does the term mean linguistically? What does it mean contextually as the Quran uses it? Sometimes they are self-evident when they come together, and sometimes they take quite a bit of gymnastics to put the two pieces together. So let's understand the tafakkur, contemplation, linguistically. التفكر هو إعمال النظر في الشيء للوصول إلى معناه وحقيقته ومثله التدبر. It's a mouthful in a long definition that means something that is somewhat a little bit simple. It means that when you engage in contemplation, the expectation from you, the contemplator, as you direct your contemplation energy towards the object that you are trying to contemplate, is to engage into something that is active in order to arrive to the meaning and the truth behind the thing you're trying to contemplate. Simply put, it's not a treasure hunt on a map quest and you declare victory as soon as you find the chest and you flip the cover. That's not what this is about, what contemplation is about. Contemplation is to take all of your senses, intellect, emotions, cognition, feelings, sensory elements, and direct them on to the following quest. find the truth and work it. So it's an effort, it's an engagement. So it's an engagement of the alignment of all of the pieces together that might be scattered, but it's an engagement towards a deep objective, the purpose of which is to find something that becomes liberating, that causes a eureka moment. I tell you, it's a magical experience. I'm a scientist by training, I'm a physicist by training, and I remember all of my life in the lab, 22-hour days, you babysit the experiment and whatnot, and the thing you were hunting for suddenly happens. And it's like the world comes to a standstill. It's like this moment, this magical moment, when all things seem like, whoa, what just happened here? And then there is a sense of pleasure and a sense of conquest and a sense of special achievement and a sense of that. It's absolutely magical if you experience that. And subhanAllah, here the poet invites us that when we search for God in all of the hidden places, what we need to bring to that engagement is that excitement about it, is that when you find that moment, when you find that special relationship, it causes all of these reactions that come inside you. So there is a sense of discovery, a sense of pleasure, a sense of achievement, a sense of fulfillment in what has happened. And that's why I think that the linguistic definition took care in being very accurate in defining what tafakkur, contemplation, is. Let's now go technical. The scholars of the Quran, how they define it. والتفكر في آيات القرآن هو تأمل معانيه. So one of the prerequisites of reflecting on the Quran when you open it and you put it on your lap or in front of you is to understand that you are drilling into its meaning and significance. That's a very powerful idea. I'm sure you are all technical in this audience and you are all in the midst of the storm of this large language models and GPT and all of that stuff that you hear about in the news. Whether you are close to it or not, it really doesn't matter. But the fact that it is a little bit buzz, there is something extremely magical about these new technologies. And one of the things that is quite amazing in these large language models when you build them, and I'm sorry, I'm applying my physics training to deep learning, so all kinds of disclaimers to just be very careful on what I'm saying and who I'm saying it to. The magic of what exists into these particular models is something that is called the meaning space. When you take a machine that you have trained over and over and over again to complete sentences, and you give them the following exercise. If I begin the following sentence, complete it. I'm driving on Route 20, I'm stopping in a gas station to, computer, complete the sentence. You'll be amazed that it says to pump gas. Well, it's interesting that it didn't stop by saying to go to the bathroom or to grab a snack or to get some coffee. So it made the link into the various things to put them together. That's called exploring the meaning space. And in some sense, what is ironic is that these models are trying to mimic the brain. So I have a little bit of advice today. It'll be helpful for the brains that have gone dormant during the summer to start mimicking the machine. So we can go the other way around a little bit so we can learn from something and we can apply it to our work. So the idea is to understand that when you come to the Quran, you are navigating this meaning space in which you are working with this. So that's what the tafakkur is. وَالْإِعْتِبَارُ عِنْدَ أَجَائِبِهِ. So when you arrive to one of its mysteries, you don't go, oh my God, what do I do with this? That's when you go, whoa, I'll explore this. That's the rabbit hole thing. So I want to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. So that's the attitude that we are invited to reflect on here. But the next thing, which is highly practical, these ajaib, these mysteries of the Quran, they come in form called awamirihi, its commandments, and its ethical recommendations on when it asks us to lead a model life. But also its admonition, وَمَوَاعِدِهِ وَأَحْكَامِهِ, all of its rulings and all of the advices that it gives. And then they define وَقِصَصِهِ وَوُجُوهِ بَلَغَتِهِ, and all of the stories it tells, and all of the eloquence of the language in which it tells them. That's the dimension of beauty in the Quran. And the one I love the most is the end of the definition. وَبَدِيعِ رُمُوزِهِ. The Quran also speaks in symbolic language. I always say this, one of the most demanding things when you are a person burdened with, or privileged, depending on how you look at it, with public speaking, one of the things that is extremely demanding in public speaking is how you define your content so everybody in the audience with their level of expertise can resonate with one aspect in some sense where they feel that they are connected to it. I was extremely privileged to the place where I went and did my PhD studies in physics. One of the staples, one of the common features that we have is you can think about it as being a forum in which Nobel Prizes in physics would come to present after usually they get the prize. So they get their prize and then they get invited, and so they come on campus and they visit. And one of the things that I have always been absolutely mesmerized by when these people present, it sort of goes like this. In the first 10 minutes of what these are people who have a Nobel Prize in physics. So you can immediately begin to imagine that the stuff that they work on is not for the faint-hearted. So it's rather demanding to even barely track what they are talking about or what language that they are using. But it's quite amazing in their skill. The first 10 minutes, they never lose anybody in the audience. They can boil it down to some common language about the train moving and a ball thrown in the air and things like that. And you're connected. You will never feel alienated. Actually, it's magical in the sense that you feel some kinship with the Nobel Prize in physics and you say, wow, I think I'm smarter than I thought. So it's just a real magical moment. It's an unbelievable skill in which they do that. But then slowly they understand that in the audience, people who came to attend the lecture, it's going to get deeper very quickly. So along the way, some others who are deeper students of the field will start to understand certain things and lose others. And at the end, those who are competing directly in the field will find also the connection to what they have. But the key here in the Quran is that there is an amazing symbolism and power to it. So let me give you a little bit of a secret that I came to understand in my life with the Quran. If you are going to engage it, and your objective is to become the next Imam Malik to find another ruling in the Quran that Imam Malik didn't discover, stop. Don't. No, just don't. Like, don't waste your time. However, if you are going to read the Quran and suddenly you are going to have an insight that says something to you, and you go, oh my God, that's very interesting. So I'll tell you a little story. So there is this unbelievable encyclopedic Mauritanian scholar, Sheikh Mohamed. I heard him recently, I think it must have been about 9 months ago or a year ago. This is, by the way, this is a man who has competencies as a world-leading scholar of the Quran, memorizer of the Quran with multiple versions, knows the entire books of Hadith by heart end to end, expert in all of the sciences of Islam, expert in all Arabic poetry and a trained poet by himself, and has an encyclopedia of knowledge about this religion that Allah only gives to very few as a gift. So that's what we're talking about here. And he says, yeah, I was reading this very short surah in the Quran, and then he says, suddenly I discovered something for the first time ever reading about it that I never encountered in anything before. And I went, come again? That shouldn't be possible. And yes, it was. So that's the idea of what we are talking about in contemplation. Contemplation is a gift that is equal access opportunity to all of us. Yes, you bring to the Quran the respect it deserves, but that gift can be given to you without much hardship. So where did I take all of this from after I read from Iqbal? Obviously the Quran. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم من سورة آل عمران. This is verse 191. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم. Those, Allah is describing a category of people who engage in this form of continuous worship, which is to remember and contemplate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basically in all conditions of their life and in all states in which they find themselves into. قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم. So they could be standing up, and they can put themselves in a contemplating state. They could be sitting down, and they put themselves in a contemplating state. They could be lazing down, literally lay down, and they still could put themselves into that state. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. But regardless of which state they are in, it doesn't escape them that they have organized their contemplation power to be directed at the creation of the heavens and the earth. You remember what I said before the Archimedes thing, the Eureka and the big aha moment? There is a way to say aha in the language of the Quran. And that's what they say when they make a big discovery. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Our Lord, you have not created all of this in vain. Subhanak, glory be to you. فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So that's the Eureka in the language of the Quran. So that's what that means when you hit that. So that's your reaction when you get this moment of special ecstasy in tasting the halal of the Quran. So this double movement, I think, is extremely, extremely, extremely important in so many ways, and we could say a lot about it. But see, we live in a world and times today where we are literally drowning in information. I actually have developed a routine personally, which is a hygiene routine, where I purposefully turn off all information outlets to try to find myself, because I imagine that it's like a dam that broke upstream, and that water that is coming is just going to eat me alive. So just turn them off in order to be able to take a moment and realize how life feels without being drowned with information all the time. But one thing is very disturbing. The proliferation of these channels who are hosing us with information and making us helpless are not necessarily making us smarter. So our obligation as Muslims, as we boot again into coming into the new year with our kids getting back to school, or if you are teachers welcoming your students in, is to learn to fully engage in the language and in the method that I'm describing here. And the key is to always find the way to get to this immediate quest to savor the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I find that this say of Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib karramallahu wajhah, in which he says something I think very, very, very beautiful to say. من أصلح بينه وبين الله أصلح الله ما بينه وبين الناس. If you make an investment of making Allah's relationship a priority in your life, to constantly strive to nurture it and repair it, Allah will see to it that He will constantly repair and heal your relationships with other people. So that's how he starts. Then he says, وَمَنْ أَصْلَحَ أَمْرَ آخِرَتِهِ. And whoever strives in order to heal and fix the relationships with the hereafter, أَصْلَحَ اللَّهُ أَمْرَ دُنْيَاهِ. Allah will pay you back in fixing the things that are falling apart in your own life in here. وَمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ مِنْ نَفْسِهِ وَاعِظًا. And whoever sharpens the voice inside your head that is constantly advising you to do what is right, كَانَ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَافِظًا. That voice will also be your counsel to protect you against transgressing the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that, I think, is the transition point to the second and last part of the khutbah, which is short, which we will conclude. For the second part of the khutbah, I want to deal with the second movement that Iqbal spoke about when he asked the following question: what is the death of love? And he replied, when you stop remembering the beloved. Now, what I find amazing, okay, so it says that the solution to the problem is the following thing: do not forget the beloved. So to put it in simple English grammar, going the other way around, that's basically what it says. But I think there is more to it to really think about and to reflect about it. So here is what I find amazing about Islam. In it, you have the intellect of Ibn Abbas, Hebrew Quran. So somebody who Allah has given a gift to be able to interpret the layered meanings of the Quran in a way that no one else can. But in this religion also we have the compliance of Abdullah ibn Umar. We have a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, used to see him bow to avoid hitting a branch of a tree. The tree is gone and Abdullah ibn Umar keeps bowing. That to some people today who are highly intellectual, that sounds a little silly. You know, doing something in the remembrance of a beloved is never silly. It's an act of love. My love used to bend. My friend, my companion, the Prophet ﷺ, used to bend when he was here. I'm going to do this to remember his memory. So we have those people too in Islam. We also have the intelligence of an Imam al-Shafi'i. That human being is beyond description in terms of what he brought to this world and what he has done with his intellect. The first human into the history of Islam that codified Islamic law as an individual effort from his head and with his piety. We also have the encyclopedic knowledge of Ibn Taymiyyah, and we certainly have the precision of Ibn Hazm, and the philosophy of Al-Kindi, and the amazing heart of Imam Al-Ghazali. But you know what? That Islam would not have a smile on its face if we didn't have the poetry of Rumi or Sa'di or Ahmed Shawqi or others. Because one without the other, it'll be like quite absurd, literally, quite frankly, if somebody went to observe the Mona Lisa, and instead of taking a step from a distance in order to observe the painting, they're spending all of their time with the colorimeter to measure, is this green enough, is it blue enough, is it yellow enough? That would be an absurd experience with the reality of the earth, of the art that you are trying to consume. So that's the point about why this is very important to think about that. So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Ali Imran teaches us this. So he wants us to have these layered relationships with him. Search for him, know that he is your creator, know that he is the quest of your truth. Do all of these things towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to build the relationship with him. But when it comes to the name that he wants to put on that relationship, he comes to this verse here. And that's how Allah describes it in his language. Bala man awfa bi'ahdihi wattaqa. Whoever upholds his end of the covenant and becomes conscious of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Then I'll build a loving relationship with you and you will become part of those who are pious that I love. So that's the language that Allah uses in order to describe this. And when you tap into this, you tap into something very special. So in conclusion, as a reminder, for those of you who have the skill to talk, teachers, or parents to students, or parents to children, or teachers to students, or whichever way you have that power and the gift that was given to you, and you want to summarize in few words what I talked about today, talk about these two things. One is that contemplation and love are likely to restore the sanctity to life and to this world that we live in. And it would hopefully one of these days help us put back the emotional competencies and to define our relationships to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to our brothers, to our sisters, and to the creation, so we can breathe life into it again. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the favor to remember and love Him as He deserves to be loved and remembered. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم واستغفروه فيفوز المستغفرين. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد, one of our beloved brothers, Brother Amin Khan, a long-time member of our community, needs our prayers because he is dealing with a medical condition, inshallah ta'ala. And we begin by sending him first our regards and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah ta'ala, will make it easy for him. We pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes the recovery easy for him. And we make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, that He give peace to his family, to himself. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He returns him to us, inshallah, safe when Allah wills, because He is the only healer. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا مبتلا إلا عافيته ولا ضالا إلا هديته ولا غائبا إلا رددته ولا مظلوما إلا نصرته ولا أسيرا إلا فككته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته ولا حاجة لنا فيها صلاح ولك فيها رضا إلا قضيتها لنا يا رب العالمين. عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة وقد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
And I ask you a favor, please, those brothers who are all the way at the back, move to your right. Please move to your right and fill the hall to your right. There's plenty of room to start new rows on your right. You still got room. Please keep going. جزاكم الله خير. استووا واعتدلوا. الله أكبر.